Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. For this week's midweek meta deck slot, we are playing Perez's Monowhite challenge winning deck. Now, we played Perez's previous build of this deck a couple of weeks ago, but they went and won another challenge, so here we are playing it again. This deck is an interesting one. If you just had a little skim look, you go, okay, we got Solitude, we got Seasoned Dungeoneer, Touch the Spirit Realm. This is going to be like a sort of next level initiative deck post-banning. However, it's not really like that. We're trying to leverage the fact that we've got these Ancient Tombs and Fast Mana in Chrome Mox to go along with our Urza Saga. So we're kind of more of an Urza Saga deck in a lot of ways. Our deck is pretty much designed to beat other decks that are playing creatures in a lot of ways, right? Because we've got the Solitudes, we've got the Plows, we've got the Touch of the Spirit Realms, we've got creatures like this that win in combat, we've got our own Urza Saga, and we can then also flood the board with Retrofitter Foundry tokens. So we're kind of leveraging that aspect while also having a little bit of way of taxing our opponent through the Chancellor and the Esper Sentinels and the Thalia, so we can get our guys down and just win the game. Now, sometimes we're going to get free wins with Seasoned Dungeoneer if we play it really early, because that's kind of what the card can do. But yeah, this is like a mid-rangey white deck, really. So it's got a lot of cards that I like in it. I do enjoy the Esper Sentinel, big fan of Urza Saga, and big fan of Wastelands. But sometimes we're going to be the bad guy in Seasoned Dungeoneer people. If we go through our Undercity, we might end up getting a free Chancellor Annex, which is a pretty nice one to have, as well as being a card that pitches to Chrome Mox. So that's mostly what these are. They're 4 spikes that pitch to Chrome Mox. And we've got one Emeria's Call. So these are kind of like running instead of Emeria's Call in a lot of ways, because they are going to be going under the Chrome Mox very often, I would imagine. But yeah, other than that, it's kind of what you'd expect. We've got a few little targets for our Saga. We've got Graveyard Hate. We've got the Shadowspear, so we can just win the game off of a Saga and make it a big guy. We've got Timeless Dragons to help us bridge the gap up to the 4 mana and 5 mana plays. And it's also just a pretty good threat that we can play twice in some matchups if they don't have exile removal. But we can always get like a 2-for-1 with it by plane cycling and then making a creature that requires an answer. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the main deck. I like the additional Eiganjo as a bit more mana. I feel that was something I wanted before, so let's see how this works out. Sideboard-wise, we've also got a slightly better sideboard than the last one, in my opinion, because it had things like Angel's Grace and stuff in it. So we've got 2 Deafening Silence, which is something I said I wanted some of when I played this, so that's good. We've got a Grafdigger's Cage, that can be found off of the Urza Saga. It's going to hurt Reanimator decks, it's going to hurt Elf decks, Natural Order style decks, Natural Order, Elves, Reanimator, that sort of thing is what we're going to be doing. Obviously Dredge, if you can find some of that. We've got a Kataki. I'm not sure how useful the Singleton Kataki is, but it's kind of going alongside this Recruiter of the Guard and this Loran, so it's kind of like 3 copies of that sort of effect. Powder Keg we're playing because this can blow up artifact lands as well as 0-drop, so you play this against the 8-cast decks, you shred all of their Seat of the Synods as well as all their Mox Opals and all whatever they've got, Thopter tokens, etc. A few pieces of Graveyard Hate split between Extraction and Macabre, and obviously the Grafdigger's Cage you mentioned. A couple of Rest in Peace as well. So we've got a lot of tools. Containment Priest is going to be good. So we have lots of different cards, but they kind of overlap, right? So Containment Priest overlaps into Reanimator while also being good against things like Natural Order and the stuff that Grafdigger's Cage is also good against, like Green Sun Zenith, etc. So we sort of got redundancy of different cards. And we have the one-off Pithing Needle, which you can go and find off our Urza Saga. So that's pretty much it. We're like a mid-rangey type deck. We're interacting with our opponent a bit more than an initiative deck would, because we're trying to play a slightly longer game because we've got these Urza Sagas and Wastelands we want to leverage. But we're going to be... when I played this deck, it felt like sometimes I didn't have enough threats before. So we're going to see how it plays today, knowing what I learned the last time I played this. Alright, before we get into it, if you can like, comment and subscribe, these things really help my channel out and doesn't cost you anything. And if you want to help me financially, you can get in touch with me for a donation deck either via the Discord below or just drop a comment. Find me on Twitter at Crucible of Words, for example. Just send me a message, we can sort something out. Or you can become a member of the Patreon or the YouTube membership scheme. Alright, plug over, let's play some Legacy with Perez's Monowhite challenge winning deck list. Okay, we're on the play for round 1. We have an interesting one here. We can play Urza Saga, Chrome Mox, Thalia on turn 1. Quite like that one. We're definitely keeping this hand. Let's go for Chrome Mox. We'll put Thalia underneath it because we've got 2 of them and they're legendary. And then we'll play this Urza Saga out. And jam this Thalia. So this way we can play an Urza Saga game with a little bit of protection of Thalia to slow our opponent down. The punish well, I say the punish. The worst thing that we could see there was our Thalia getting countered, our opponent untapping and wastelanding our Urza Saga. That'd be pretty bad. So do you want to make a construct token or do you want to kill their... Interesting choice. I think we are going to leverage our Saga and then wasteland next turn. Our opponent might not be expecting a wasteland out of us as well. So we might be able to get a lot more utility than expected. This isn't an accelerated out Dryad Arbor, so it should be fine. I just want to get some big creatures up and running. Our opponent's a Yori on deck. I'm not sure if I mentioned that at the start. So we're looking at sort of the 4-color Zenith deck. Is this a prismatic ending on our Thalia? I imagine. Yep. Because the way prismatic ending works is it looks at all the mana that's used to cast it, and Thalia just makes it cost more, so they can use the extra one that is costing them to pay the mana they need. So what do we want here? Probably a Retrofitter's Foundry, I think. And then we're just going to knock our opponent off of white mana. Because that's their removal colour. They're going to struggle to kill 2 tokens in 1 turn cycle. Especially we also have the Retrofitter's Foundry, so they're going to need to find removal for the Foundry and both of our constructs, because this is going to get out of hand relatively quickly. So we can deploy Esper Sentinel and activate Retrofitter's Foundry, and then have some rather large constructs. X equals 1, or is this going to be a Birds of Paradise? Sure. So they're telling us that we want to remove their mana sources. Eiganjo. Interesting. I don't think this Birds of Paradise is blocking, so let's just stick down our Esper Sentinel. Go to attacks. Have 2 5/5s, which are going to be 6/6s in a second. Okay, they're scooping. They know we're going to pump it with the Retrofitters, and they're not going to be able to answer all our things in 1 turn. So our opponent is like a Yori on Zenith deck. Whether or not they have natural orders, I do not know. But they do have the Green Sun Zenith and Blink stuff, so these Containment Priests are probably going to be quite useful in that regard. Grafdigger's Cage potentially as well. Other than that, I'm not really sure what else to play. The Recruiter of the Guard feels like it's going to be relatively useful if you want to try and find our Containment Priests. And these things are probably just going to be better than touches, I would imagine. Our opponent is a creature-based deck, so having the plows and things makes sense to me. They might have Uros, so we want to keep the Soul Guide Lantern, but don't want to go too hard on Graveyard Hate. We can always fetch this if we need it. And the Grafdigger's Cage does similar work. I think this is about where I'm happy to be. We can always readjust it in a 3rd game. Okay, our opening hand's got Sideboard card. We've got decent mana here. We kind of need like a bigger threat, but I think we will keep this. If we can get ourselves to mess with a Green Sun Zenith, that would be pretty good for us. Now there's Green Sun Zenith here, then we're not going to be able to hit it with a Containment Priest. Yep, it looks like that's what's happening. Oh no, an Abundant Growth. Sure. This was a deck that was quite popular before the initiative, and I think it's creeping back up again in popularity. So we could try and jam this Containment Priest, or we could just play our Esper Sentinel. But if we want to jam the Containment Priest, we need to give up a white card. And the only white card we can give up, because you don't want to get rid of the Seasoned Dungeoneer, is the Plow. So do you want to give up a Plow right now to make a Containment Priest that might not even do anything? Or do we just want to play the Esper Sentinel? I think we want to actually accelerate our way out in this game. Because if we play the turn 1 Containment Priest, we play the turn 2 Seasoned Dungeoneer. Then we'll hold up this Containment Priest in case our opponent does something like a Green Sun Zenith. We're still cast at end of turn anyway, but we might get our opponent to mess up. Ice Fang. Oh, the thing, exactly when we wanted. That's way better than them casting a main phase Ice Fang. So this will counterspell their Green Sun Zenith here. They can fail to find so it doesn't get exiled, but that's pretty nice for us. Drop an Ancient Tomb. We're playing this pre-combat because this is a Cleric, so we'll get the pump effect from our Seasoned Dungeoneer. Our opponent is probably not a Dazed deck, so I don't expect this to get dazed. Alright, we're in with the Seasoned Dungeoneer. Going to get ourselves a nice little basic. We can go to attacks. Being a Cleric, we get to fix our draws potentially. Retrofitter's Foundry. Do I want to Retrofitter's Foundry? We've got a lot of mana to work with. Interesting. Sure. I'll take that Retrofitter's Foundry. We've got a lot of mana to work with. It gives us something that we can do. If our opponent rats our board, we at least have all of our guys. We can immediately start making some guys. A brainstorm. Alright, our opponent's just scooping that one. Yeah. So uncontested initiative is very hard to beat. And the fact that we just got to counter their thing that was going to find them Birds of Paradise or some mana fixing or acceleration or whatever was really clutch. So yeah, a pretty quick win. Let's go to round 2. We're on the die roll here. Our hand is turn 1 Esper Sentinel, turn 3 Seasoned Dungeoneer. And that's okay. So we'll keep that. I think we'll lead out on a basic planes here. Because we can't be Wasteland. So we got this Esper Sentinel. And this should buy us the sort of bridging turn we have. If we can maybe use a Source to Plowshares. Or even an Eiganjo this turn, that would be quite good. Okay, Death Shadow. I think our opponent was on Death Shadow last time we played them as well. So they're doing this so they can hold up a Force of Will, as well as the fact that they want to take damage. Am I supposed to try and Wasteland our opponent off with this land? That's an interesting choice. Let's attack our opponent and see what they do. They're doing a Snuff Out. Are they going to pay here? I suspect they will. Yeah, sure. Now our opponent is a Wasteland deck as well. Oh, I'm not a big fan of this play. But if our opponent is stranded without a mana source, that's going to be very good for us. If we can also keep them away from Baleful Strix, that's going to be handy. But usually Wastelanding against Delver decks isn't where you want to be. And Shadow kind of is Delver adjacent. So, I thought so. So we're going to lose our Seasoned Dungeoneer. Unless they think they can contest the initiative really easily. I imagine this is the matchup where I'd rather be on the Death Shadow side, I think. I really like the Death Shadow deck, to be honest. It's very strong. Let's have a look. Chancellor of the Annex. It's not really doing it for us, is it? I think we play out the Eiganjo here. I think that's the one that we're better off losing to a Wasteland. We do have 2 plow effects available, though. So they find a Death Shadow, we can kill it and make it so that the next one requires them to lower their life total again. You can never play 2 Death Shadows out against a white deck. Yep, so there's a Wasteland. And are we going to lose our thing that we thought we might lose? Or are they going to try and hold it up for the Ancient Tomb that they know we have? Yeah, if you play 2 Death Shadows against a white deck and they plow one, the other one dies because their life total changes. It's not getting better for us. So I think we have to try and jam now. If this works, we get a land, which can mitigate the effects of the Wasteland. We also make some big inroads on board. I'm imagining we're getting Dazed or Force of Will here. Dress Down. Okay, that's a bit annoying, but not the end of the world. We do have some Touch of the Spirit Realm, which can blink this. Alright, so our opponent's Dress Down's gone away, and that's their turn now. We have a Solitude with a Chancellor Annex. We're more than happy to pitch. We're never casting Chancellor in this game. Yeah, so we lose the Ancient Tomb, as we thought would happen. A Death Shadow. Sure, we don't really care about that one. An Esper Sentinel, you say. Go to attack, so let's see what's on top of our library. Snuff Out, targeting our Seasoned Dungeoneer. Okay. So we still get to put this card where we want it, right? No. Okay, so we're going to jam this Esper Sentinel now. If we play it pre-combat, they still kill our guy anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, a Wasteland. Yep. We can afford to take 7 here and see what happens in the second main. If they deploy another creature, we might be able to plow that creature. I don't think we need to plow this right now. That doesn't really help us. Let's nug in for a little bit of damage here. Our opponent might try and lower their life total. And if they use up some of their life total lowering things, then our plows will be more effective. There's a Watery Grave. Tapped. Sure. We're going to cast this plow. We have the Solitude as well. Force of Will. Are they going to pay? They've got 1 card in hand. They can daze this if that's that one. If it's the 1 card in their hand. I wanted to save this one till last in case we ended up in a situation where we could flicker it and get some more value. So our opponent's got one card in hand. They are a blue deck, so they're going to be able to draw ponders and brainstorms and find some more action. So we need to do something. Currently we just got this 1-1 and we're just getting our mana taken out from underneath us. Like an Urza Saga and another land is a good draw, but on its own it's not very good here. I guess we can pitch our Chrome Mox, but we're kind of probably going to need this Solitude somewhere down the line. There is a Shadow. Okay, so we need a white card in the near future. We have a Karakas. If we play it, it turns on our opponent's Wastelands. But we're going to need to get our mana up soon anyway. So our opponent's got a slightly bigger Shadow here, because they can crack that for 3 damage and attack us for 4. Should be hard for them to kill us this turn though, so we can just take the damage. Fortunately, when we start cracking back with our Sentinel, we end up giving them a bigger Shadow, which can then kill us the following turn. So it's going to be tough. No to us. It's not a white card. I don't think we can afford to attack here. So we attack, puts the Shadow to 5, so any land, any Watery Grave or fetch land wins it for them. Now if they have a Snuff Out, we're dead anyway. So there's no point blocking here. Snuff Out would kill us. Running Street Wraiths could do something, I guess. But I don't think it's worth playing around. We just take the 4 and see if we can get into this game. And Eiganjo. This is an ugly play, but we need to do it to survive, I think, here. And then the other option we had was wait a turn and then try and block with our Esper Sentinel and hope that we can cast this Solitude somewhere down the line. But an uncountable way of removing this 4-4. It's a little bit risky if they find the land or whatever, it's big. But I think it's worth doing. Baleful Strix. Okay. That will also kill us in short order because of our life total. He's going to attack us. Haven't seen Street Wraiths yet. See if we can get it. Anyway, pumping themselves damage-wise. Again, if they had this the Snuff Out, we were dead anyway. Maybe we're supposed to block and then do that. I don't know. Because if we block first, then we're guaranteed not to die that turn. Maybe that's slightly smarter. Murky Boy. Alright, we need to find a removal spell. Nope, that's us done. Let's go to game 2. Yeah, this one felt a little bit on the awkward side, truth be told. So what are we looking at here? Recruit the Guard is card advantage at the end of the day, so I don't hate that one. Rest in Peace definitely has some text when they're a Murktide deck, but that's pretty much all we're working with here. We can use Powder Kegs to try and blow up shadows. That's not as good as the removal we already have. A lot of our tools seem pretty decent here. Chancellor is a little bit unexciting. So would we rather have a couple of Rest in Peace to stop Murktide draws? I think so. They pitched to Chrome Mox just as well. And we just got a decent chunk of removal in here. That'll do. So, what does this hand do? Chrome Mox, Chrome Mox. You can play an Urza Saga game. You can play a... We've got a lot of different options. I think we will keep this one. We'll start with Sentinel Saga. If they don't have the Wasteland in their opening grip, that's a very strong start. If they do, then we're kind of knackered. So, let's play this out. Chrome Mox. So we can either pitch the Rest in Peace or the Seasoned Dungeoneer. I'd rather pitch the Rest in Peace because the Seasoned Dungeoneer is going to hopefully recoup this card loss for us. Then off the white mana, we will make an Esper Sentinel. So Snuff Out can kill the Sentinel, but they can't Wasteland and Snuff Out. So we'll at least get to keep the Sentinel or the Saga. Okay, the Wasteland, we're just losing the Saga. Alright, this is kind of disaster territory already. Oh, wow. I think we'll play out the Wasteland here, because it's when we don't care about getting Wastelanded. And if we can find a white card, we can play Chrome Mox and Ancient Tomb together to try and Seasoned Dungeoneer. Our opponent is heavily favoured from here. This matchup feels pretty good for the old Death Shadow people. Our Delvery stuff was pretty good against Old Initiative, and this is kind of similar in some respects. Okay, so not cracking that. So now we don't need a white source for this. We can just play this one out and try and jam our boy. I don't think it's reasonable to play against Daze, to try and play around Daze, because our opponent is a Wasteland deck, and we just have like nothing going on here. If we just have this 1-1, then we're not getting anywhere. A Brainstorm. Oh, we're getting a draw though. This is good. A Solitude. Okay. Can we find a Daze or a Force of Will here? Seasoned Dungeoneer gets to come in. We're going to be in a pretty reasonable spot. Yeah, okay. We just win the game straight off of that. Oh, the initiative, one mechanic. All right. Game 3. Chancellor is better in game 3 than it is in... it's better on the draw than it is on the play, because you can afford to have that one card just taxing your opponent's first turn. It kind of resets how the turns work. However, what would we sideboard out for that? I think we just have to read something like this, right? The Chancellor can be nice, but it's not really something we want to draw against our opponent very much. So it's in our opening hand and we get the Force Spike off, fair enough. This isn't really the matchup it's for. We could have brought in Pithing Needle for Wasteland, but I think our plan is to kind of get around that. Okay, so we're basically playing taxes here, but we've got a basic land and a spare Karakas we can throw away, so this seems fine to me. We could jam the Sentinel off of a Karakas to try and incentivize our opponent to Wasteland, but I'm not a big fan of that. Alright, so we're going to see the Thoughtseize here. I imagine we're losing our Thalia. Yep, so they took our Thalia with the Thoughtseize. We're kind of left with slightly less impressive creatures. They could spend a Daze on this Esper Sentinel. Right, they didn't. That's okay for us. Now our opponent's basically just going to play a bunch of spells until their life total is low enough, or their creature count, or their cards in their graveyard is high enough that they can play a Murktide. Right, we've got a free card. It was not a very good one though. But maybe it will come in clutch later on. Now, they are a Wasteland deck, so having mana sources that don't get Wastelanded is always nice. But I don't really want multiple Chrome Moxes, because that's a lot of card disadvantage in a matchup where our opponent's going to be trading 1-for-1 with us and then sticking a big threat to win the game with. Alright. So Pondered, given us a card, and then Cracked. So they're telling us that these are the lands they have. So Wastelands, pretty useful. Okay. So getting pushed there. Bit rude. Fair enough. So if we jam the Rest in Pieces turn, we might be able to shut off a Murktide coming into play. I think that's better than playing out the Esper Sentinel here. Alright, so no Murktides in this game for the foreseeable future. That's good. And the life total is not high enough, low enough for a Death Shadow just yet. So it can be on 13 with Fetch Land into Watery Grave. Right, they found a card that's pretty good against some of our creatures. Actually, is that true? It's good against Saga tokens, right? But the Seasoned Dungeoneer goes through it, and the first strike from Thalia is pretty good too. Let's play a Sentinel and another Sentinel. So we've got a decent amount of taxation going on here, but we're not really making inroads into the game. We don't have any sort of payoffs for our deck yet. Good job I cut my Murktide, as my opponent said after I played my Rest in Peace. Well, yeah. Thoughtseize. We're going to get a card here, but they're going to see what we draw and then decide if they want to take it here. Are they going to let us draw 2 cards or 1? They're going to let us draw 2 cards. So we're losing our Touch of the Spirit Realm because it's the only card that does anything in our hand. We have 2 Karakas. Not really what we want to see. Fatal Push on our guy. So we're drawing up extra cards, but they're not doing anything. Our opponent didn't make another land drop. So we're incentivized to Wasteland here. Say no to Underground Seas. So we are winning this race, if you can call it a race. But the problem is, we just put them in Death Shadow range where they can just get a threat that can completely stonewall us and just clock us. But we kind of have to do this. So, not ideal. Our opponent is favoured at this point, I would say. We know they've got a grip full of spells. They know we've got a grip full of mana. So, our opponent is... Oh, another land. Cool. I guess we can Eiganjo out the Baleful Strix if we need to. It's a play we can make, so... Right, they finished resolving their Ponder. They did not shuffle, and then they're playing a fetch. They obviously wanted one card, which presumably was the land. Or they might have wanted more, but they could only get one card. Alright, so now there's a Death Shadow, which completely blanks all the things we're doing. Not the best. An Urza Saga. I'll play out this Urza Saga. And hopefully we can use Eiganjo on our opponent's Death Shadow. There's a Wasteland. They can do this pre-combat. They should do. They've already seen an Eiganjo. Let's float. And then get nothing. Yeah, so our opponent is just... Their deck is just built so well to beat the sort of threats that we're trying to deploy here. Got Wastelands for Sagas. They got pretty effective removal against our guys. They can stonewall some of our guys with this. If they don't have the Wasteland. They got Dress Down in their deck as well. This feels like a bit of an uphill battle, this one. Thalia. What are we supposed to do here? We can try and tax them a bit more. And then try and Eiganjo them. But the opportunities to get this Death Shadow out of the way are few and far between, right? Well, with our current hand, we have so many good draws. I don't really want to pay the life here. I might regret this. I've got Brainstorm. So we've got a Thalia now. We're not attacking. We want our opponent to be... We want our Death Shadow to be as small as possible until we can answer it, really. We're not quite at first striking it down yet, either. If we have tapped our mana differently, we could have... Okay, our opponent is Thought Season, which is actually pretty bad for us, because they see our Eiganjo here. But... Yes, if we could have tapped down the Ancient Tomb, but that cost us 2 life, which is quite a lot of life in this situation. And just to leave up our Karakas, which maybe can save us some life, but then we have to redeploy the Thalia next time, and it opens up again Thought Seized. So our Eiganjo is off, so I'm glad we didn't hold up for that, otherwise we'd have just felt awful here. We just have to take the 6, I think. We're looking for Swords to Plowshares, Touch the Spirit Realm, that sort of jazz. Got many Wastelands. Guess we will Wasteland our opponent. Maybe we are on the Thalia bounce, block and bounce plan. I don't think we can attack here. The problem here is if we do the block... Oh, just this coming in. Interesting. I was going to say, if we do the block and bounce trick, we unlock our opponent's mana, which is not something we want to do. A Solitude. I think we're just going to keep wastelanding our opponent, though. This means they can't play any spells, so the Solitude is going to be very likely to resolve. We'll pass a turn. And then next turn we'll hardcast a Solitude when they don't have any mana available to counterspell it. Hopefully. They might have a land here. We do have to block and bounce given the opportunity here, though. Take the 1. Alright. We're on here. So, what land do we want to play here? We've got all these spare ones. I think we might need the Eiganjo just to kill this, potentially. I think we've got enough Karakas that we can play it. This does have lifelink as well, so we will be able to gain up the life that we'll be losing on the Baleful Strix. So we've got our opponent in a little tax and bind here. Pretty happy with our spot. Sometimes you choose people through Wastelands. Alright, nothing on the Strix there. A Saga. It's a pretty good one. Going to swing out with everything and then Eiganjo the blocker. They know we have this Eiganjo actually, so they're going to have a bad time. Right, they're scooping up. They know what's happening there. They even know about the Eiganjo as well. So we managed to get a win there. I feel we got a little bit fortunate. But I'll take it. I think the Death Shadow matchup has the right tools to beat this matchup. I think the combination of Wasteland, the fact that we're trying to win with either Urza Saga or a 4-drop means that Wasteland's very good against us. And counter spells to stop the initial threat. And then obviously the dress downs and things. But that doesn't mean you can't thread the needle and get there, which we did. 2-0, let's go to round 3. We lost the die roll for this one, so it's going to be a bit tougher. But we're going to keep this hand. We've got turn 1 Thalia, turn 2 Seasoned Dungeoneer, if I can do my maths. So that's pretty good. Keep getting these double Chrome Mox hands there, which I detest. But such is life sometimes. A polluted Delta. That doesn't really tell us anything about our opponent's deck. If we want to play this Chrome Mox, we got to pitch a white card, which means I think we're pitching the Swords to Plowshares. We got a whole lot of removal on our deck anyway. We've got 12 pieces. Oh, it's just getting countered. They got a misstep for it. That doesn't actually bother me because we got the second one. This would be great if they counter this. Oh, yes. Thank you, opponent. You turned our blank card into a duress. I'll have it. Oh, yeah, we're in with the Thalia. So if our opponent's some sort of... It seems unlike they're a Doomsday deck with a minor misstep, but it's possible. Alright, so we're looking at some sort of like bug stuff deck. So if we jam out a Seasoned Dungeoneer here, we're jamming it into days, but this resolved into days. So I think we just go for it. They've had one additional card since then. Alright, we're in. Dress down, stifle. Okay, sure. So we're looking at some sort of like bug stifle deck. Seasoned Dungeoneer is still going to grow. If we can find Touch the Spirit around, we might be able to blank some removal and blink our guy at the same time. Should be quite a strong play if we can make it. An Uro. Yeah, it's a pretty powerful one. They're not going to be able to follow up with very much though, unless they have a Snuff Out in their deck. Which is probably quite likely they have a Snuff Out somewhere, right? Uro mitigates the downside of Snuff Out. It's a very tempo efficient play. Tapped out here though, so let's go wild and just draw good cards. Okay, so we're going to get ourselves planes. And play our planes. Let's go to attacks. Unfortunately, I only get one of these triggers. Esper Sentinel. Yes, we'll put it in the graveyard. We only get one of those triggers because the other one gets a blocked by the protection from creatures. Alright, so our opponent's some sort of bug deck. Interesting. What are we into? I'm thinking... I'm not opposed to Rest in Peace. I like the Recruit of the Guard. And we saw Stifles, which is an unusual card to run. So I reckon our opponent might have some amount of Dreadnought in. So I'm kind of tempted to play this Loran of the third path. If they have any artifacts, it's going to be relatively useful. It does feel like... Also, there's the question of, is Rest in Peace or Extraction better? I think if we're boarding out white cards like the Chancellor's here, then I think I want the Rest in Peace. The Stifle is making me think our opponent is on... They could be on some sort of like Bug Delvery type thing. So maybe the Loran isn't so good, but it's a singleton, and if it is a tool we want to find with like a recruiter, I'm going to be glad it's in the deck. So that's just, I think this is how we're going to roll with it. Yeah, we can keep this. We've got Thalia. We've got lots of removal. Just something our deck's pretty reasonable at. Right, we've got some more removal. Our opponent might struggle to thread a creature through here, but a lot of their creatures are going to have stuff on the front side, like an Uro. Not a big fan of the Wasteland, truth be told. I think we're just going to play the Sentinel here and not play a second land out. We could have played a Thalia. I think we're in a better spot like this. Fatal Push paying 1, sure. That turn would have gone the same way if I'd have played out the Thalia, except we'd also have a Wasteland hitting our Ancient Tomb. At least that way we might have had a chance of finding another mana source. Our opponent felt like they had to pay some mana. Oh, not pay some mana. What we were doing. Pernicious Deed. Alright. It's not one you see every day. Oh, we're in a bit of a bind here, aren't we? I don't want to pitch the Seasoned Dungeoneer, so I guess we're just pitching the Touch the Spirit Realm here. There is a Brainstorm from our opponent. Another Wasteland. Yeah. Thoughtseize, sure. Now our opponent's got quite a lot to try and get through to win the game here. So maybe we can sort of leverage this over the course of a few turns and draw into the rest of this game. Alright, we're back over to us. We have an Urza Saga. We can deploy this Urza Saga and... hold on. This Pernicious Deed will destroy our Saga and our Thalia. Jeez. We have to get through it, right? They can wasteland this with the trigger on the stack, yeah. That's unfortunate, but we're going to have to play through these wastelands eventually. We do have a surprising amount of interaction. However, if our opponent just starts doing Uro stuff, it's going to be pretty grim. This is going to be a 2-for-1 immediately when they put it in because of the free cards it gets. A Chrome Mox. I don't hate Chrome Mox. Do I think our opponent has a counter spell? No. Let's try a Chrome Mox out here. If they like misstep this, then we'll just cast the Thalia around Days. But our opponent hasn't shown us Days yet. There's a misstep, sure. Here's a Thalia. We're going to get our Ancient Tomb wastelanded. Because if we could resolve a Seasoned Dungeoneer, then it would have been great. Because we'd have got the land to help us push through later turns. Our opponent's down to 3 cards in hand, 2 mana sources. So they're not in that different of a spot to us. Now, they do have an on-board answer to the thing we've got. But they can also... we're getting Murktided here. Alright. So we can cast a Solitude. We can cast stuff around because they don't have any mana sources here. Any available mana sources. Okay, so we can't cast Plow. We can cast this. Solitude. What are we pitching? I think it's the Touch. Right, so that's one threat. We can't actually cast the Source of Plowshares because of our own Thalia right now. Which is a bit awkward. Again, our opponent does have an answer to this Thalia, but if we can just find a second land, we unlock our Plow. If we find more mana, we can unlock some other stuff too. A Karakas, okay. Our Plow is now unlocked. Also, if they blow the deed now, we do get to bounce our Thalia. So that's pretty good for us too. I think it's worth playing out the Shadowspear there. The third Wasteland. We got a pretty lucky hand in the first one and a very unlucky hand in the second one. Well, our opponent's got a pretty good hand this game, so it all evens out in the end, doesn't it? Another Karakas. It's not so bad they wastelanded a Karakas then, because obviously you can't have 2 Karakas in play. Our opponent's cracking a Polluted Delta for a Bayou. They got a spell here. An Uro. Okay. Now we have this checked with the Karakas, but that's not a great place to be. Our opponent didn't put an extra land in, which means their hand is 4 spells. Pretty good. Yeah, there's no point playing out a Shadowspear because we're just playing a second thing into the deed that is face up. And it takes us off of Karakas and Source of Plowshares, both of which might be useful. Our opponent didn't make a play. Interesting. What do we got here? Continuing our very small attacks. So this is going to be the Uro. Oh, the Life from the Loam. For triple Wasteland. That's not a fun way to be me, is it? Do drawing some more planes. You are not a planes. Attacks. I don't think there's any point playing out this Eiganjo just yet. I'd rather hold it for when we need to plow something. So if they put an Uro into play now, we can then play our Eiganjo, plow it, so at least our opponent will have to find another Uro to get there. But it's an uphill battle for sure. Right, so there's the Uro. We let them have a card. We don't really have a choice. We can't cast our plow until our turn. So they have 2 Wastelands. And they got a third one in the bin. They can get back next turn. Second Plains. Sign me up. Let's plow this. This also puts them back up to above 20 life. If we can get up to Seasoned Dungeoneer, we might be okay. Because we can keep them off of getting the initiative. Because their deck is quite a slow deck. Then we might just be able to grind it through. Right, we're getting Force of Willed here. Pitching the misstep. Okay, I think this game is pretty close to over. But we do have another plow in our hand, so we can make the same play. Yep, it's just our opponent's got a whole nother round of drawing cards here. And obviously they've got a 2-mana draw 3 just sit on their hand and life them alone. It's not easy being us right now. Reanimate on our Solitude. Yeah, we can call it a day there. So I like the Loran to blow up the Finisher's Deed, which can kind of mess with us a bit. But other than that, I think our Sideboarder is right for the wrong reasons, but they're not a Dreadnought deck by the looks of it. Alright, they might still be though, because they've got Uro, which is another thing that goes with the Stifles. Alright, let's just resubmit and try to get triple Wastelanded in the heart. Again, I don't think there's much point bringing in a single Pithing Needle, because the Pithing Needle is mostly going to come off of our Urza Saga. And by that point, we've already had what we wanted out of our land. Okay, I can keep this, I suppose. We've got double Wasteland hands, so we won't be able to cheese our opponent this time. But they are a Life from the Loam deck, so there's a real cost at trying to attempt that. So we'll just have to see how the game plays out. But we have an Esper Sentinel on turn 1, which is going to tax our opponent's mana at least. So we kind of should lean into that with our Wastelands, but we'll see. Our opponent's not going to crack this fetch land because they're not going to cast a spell around the Esper Sentinel. Ancient Tomb. Okay, I think we'll play out a Wasteland here. And then next turn we can try for the Seasoned Dungeoneer. And if that gets into play, then I think we're alright. So our opponent doesn't look like they're particularly expedient at taking the initiative back. Over to our opponent. Tropical Island. Sure. Am I supposed to be wastelanding my opponent here? Well, they're doing something at end of step. Interesting. An Underground Sea. A Snuff Out on our Esper Sentinel. Okay. Interesting. Do I think it's a good idea to wasteland both of my opponent's lands? With a Thalia as well. Let's wasteland this. They're going to float. Oh, they're stifling it. That's pretty good. Will I take out their green source for Uro or black source for removal? I think it's black source for removal here. We could make a Thalia by pitching our Seasoned Dungeoneer. That doesn't feel right to me. When we could try and make a Seasoned Dungeoneer next turn. Yeah, that Stifle was pretty good. Source to Plowshares. I think we'll play out this Chrome Mox. In comes Force of Will. I think we jam out the Dungeoneer here. Our opponent hasn't really shown us any day stuff, so it's probably going to be our higher counter or not. And the longer this game goes on, the worse it is for us. Force of Will pitching Uro, sure. So our opponent's going to be able to play around Thalia in that situation anyway. So I think we just need to play the thing that is more likely to get the game over and done with. A black and a green. This is going to be a loam. Punishment. Destroy each... I don't even... Oh, it's crime and punishment, right? Destroy each artifact. So basically they're blowing up our Chrome Mox. Sure. Okay. I don't want this Eiganjo in play. I think so. We've got a Thalia now, but our opponent's just got loads and loads of removal. So it's going to be difficult here. Yep. So now we're down to nothing. Our opponent's got 3 cards. So this game, we're either going to get lucky or we're going to lose. But we have to get very lucky from this point, I would imagine. If they cast an Uro this turn, I think it's probably game over. Not immediately, obviously, but it's going to get there. Yep, so there's the Uro. If we can remove their graveyard now, maybe we're okay. Oh, they didn't have a second land, which means they got a whole bunch of spells. Alright, let's try this. This can get us back into the game. Alright. I think we're going to go down the right-hand side as well. We do have an answer for the Uro. But I imagine our opponent's hand is just full of removal at this stage. They could just have more Uros. What's green and blue? Life Below, Misty Rainforest, Polluted Delta, Underground Sea. None of those are Wastelands. So I don't hate that. They've had to... Because they didn't draw the land, they couldn't just deploy the Uro straight away. We're going to scry here. This also gives us additional body in a couple of rooms' time. Do you want Thalia? Thalia's kind of good. Wasteland isn't good, that's for sure. So this can go on the bottom of the library. Do you want the Thalia here, or do you want the... Should we put Thalia on top? We'll attack here. Loran of the Third Path. What does that do here? I think we want that one. I think I would rather deploy this Thalia. It means our opponent's going to struggle to do an Uro and something next turn. And then we can, if they're tapping out for the Uro, our Solitude is way more likely to get the work done. Their Uro can't block our Seasoned Dungeoneer, which is nice. Right, here comes the Uro. They're about to go in 6 life. And we've gone for the value side of the Undercity rather than the get the game over with side. Although, even the get the game over with side does come with a card draw on it as well. Both sides pretty good at the Undercity. Right, so we've got 2 mana here. 5 cards. We've got a stash. And get a spooky skeleton in a sec. Loran of the Third Path. I'm sure we put that in the graveyard. I must have clicked the wrong button on that one. That's pretty annoying. So I guess we're casting this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can we have? If our opponents sort of kit themselves out with lots of removal, then they might have less counter spells here. So this gets rid of one of their threats. They do have another Uro here though. Not ideal for us. But we get to undo the Uro damage, the Uro life they've gained here. We can play out this Ancient Tomb. Is there any point? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's enough to play the Angel thing anyway. So I think we just hold it. Maybe our opponent knows we've got it though. So they get Spooky Skeleton next turn, which is going to be pretty handy. The 1, 2, 3, 7, 4, 5. So they can put an Uro into play, right? It's going to be a Deed. No, Deed costs 1 more. There we go. So they can blow up Thalia, and that's it this turn. And we have a Loran of the Third Path now to blow up this Deed. So I guess it works out that we hit the wrong button for this one. They're going to trade Deed for Thalia, I suspect. I guess they get the Loran as well. But by playing the Loran, we stop our opponent from blowing up our 4 and 5 drops. They're cracking a fetch land. And another fetch land. A Tireless Tracker. I was expecting that one. Interesting. We're going to lose our Spooky Skeleton to the Finisher's Deed as well, unfortunately. Ooh, this is interesting. Very interesting here. So we can kill this now with our Touch the Spirit Realm and then play Loran of the Third Path. I think I like this. So let's blink this guy 1, 2. And it'll kill this at end of turn. So these I guess they're going to block now with the Thalia actually, aren't they? Touch the Spirit Realm. Who's on top? Yeah, we messed this up a little bit. We should have just attacked with these two and see if they were probably not going to trade their tracker. We kind of wasted our Touch the Spirit Realm there. Out. Our opponent can't get anything with his Deed now though. Because they played the tracker. So I guess that's okay. So, that's a weird one. So we get our guy back. No targets. We've got a lot of damage here. Our opponent can't wipe our board with a deed. Don't see damnation on these days. Toxic Deluge would have to be for 6, which would kill them. I think we might have done it. We'll see. I'm going to bring back the Euro. We have a Touch of the Spirit Realm for that. Have some triggers there, opponent. Mystic Sanctuary, putting the Brainstorm on top. That they're then going to draw. Oh no, because they put the land in, didn't they? Yes, they don't get to draw that until next turn. And they shouldn't have a next turn. Because we've got the removal spell on top. Just as we drew it up. Alright, they've conceded. They know we got the Touch of Spirit Realm because it was revealed to the Seasoned Dungeoneer. Alright, so we're 3-0. We kind of struggled away through that one at times. When it was bad, it was really bad. We did get an incredibly unlucky hand. But yeah, this third game, just Seasoned Dungeoneer is a very strong magic card. So yeah, we're getting there. We're drawing enough threats. So round 4, let's see if we can keep the winning going. I think we can keep this one. We're a little bit cold to Wasteland, but we've got a taxing element. We haven't played against Reanimate yet as well, so maybe this is the round where we just happen to luck sack into the turn 1 Saga Lantern as well. We've got some removal. We've got a guy that we can play. Well, on the draw as well, we're going to get some more action, hopefully. So this is okay. Our opponent's going to have a little bit of an idea what we're playing with Chance. They might think we're on some sort of Reanimator deck, though. Okay. A basic island. I think we're not going to pay the life just in case it ends up being a race later on. It doesn't feel like a Saga Lantern requirement just yet. Now we will get punished out later on because of the Thalia perhaps. But we shall see. Now this is the sort of turn that makes me want to play Retrofitters and Saga Lantern. So let's try that one out. Our opponent hasn't played anything yet, so they can't be in that much of an aggressive deck. Because they'd either be looking for a threat or have a threat. Because otherwise you just can't keep that hand. Let's try the Saga Lantern. Okay, we're in with the Saga Lantern. Let's pass to our opponent. Opponent's cracking fetch land at our end step. For another basic island, alright. And they're doing a Brainstorm and paying for the Chancellor trigger. Seems very reasonable. Then it's over to their turn. Alright. Basic planes. Back to basics. Very rude. Okay. Yeah. Going to be a tough one. Our opponent has to win the game still, so. A Stoneforge Mystic, you say? That's a card, isn't it? Cauldron Complete. Now, we do have the ability to cast a card. Do we get to stop them from having a Cauldron? No, we do not. Alright. Back to basics is going to shove us down pretty hard. We don't have anything for our opponent's turns. We can just yield through it. Some more basics. Staff the Storyteller. Okay, so they play this first because when they put in the living weapon, it'll put a count on the Storyteller. Yeah, pretty strong. So we'll take 5. We don't have to play many turns of this game. No blocks. What do you got for us, deck? A Chrome Mox, you say? Like, I guess we can still play the game if we do this. Let's try and get rid of the germ. Now, our opponent does have a Staff the Storyteller, so they're going to have all the cards in the world flowing freely. And quite often the first staff finds the second one somewhere on the lines, and then you're just away. A Narset, sure. More cards for our opponent. What are they finding? A Force of Will. Alright. Resolving a spell might be a little tricky. Shadowspear. Let's try a humble Esper Sentinel. We can crack our Saga Lantern for a card soon, perhaps. Don't think we have a lot of choice in that one, but another staff, and another Stoneforge. I guess we get to see more of our opponent's package. Yep, the Batterskull. Yep, no blocks. Touch of the Spirit Realm. I guess we're going to draw a card from this. See if we can find our... Oh, what am I doing? They've got Narset in play. Shame concede. Like, we're not winning this game anyway. But that was an embarrassing one. So, yeah. What are we supposed to do against these guys? Loran of the third path. Like, I like Recruiter here because it gains us some card advantage, potentially, if it resolves it. Like, it's not a very good or exciting body, but it's still a body. Pithing Needle for the Narset, and presumably Teferi is going to be useful here. So I think we can get rid of those two. Do you want to Loran of the third path? Yes, we do. We've seen the scary thing. So that gets back to basics covered a little bit. Do we want to try and Powder Keg? This is artifact and creature rights. That's not going to do it. So we either put a Chancellor back in or just a Containment Priest here, just as a creature to beat down with. I think is going to be better. Just an actual threat we're casting. Sure, we'll try like this. We still got a lot of removal in our deck, unfortunately. But I guess we do have to worry about Stoneforge Mystics. So. No white mana sources outside of this Timeless Dragon. Is that the sort of game I want to play? I don't think it is. I think we need to mulligan. Oh, look at these basics. Okay, we'll keep these. I don't need a Chrome Mox. Now, we can try and cheese our opponent immediately with this Pithing Needle. I don't think that's where I want to be. I think we're just going to put this on Narset. Or Staff the Storyteller. Both of those are good options, actually. Or we could put it on Stoneforge Mystic. That's an interesting one. I think it should be Narset. Like, digging 4 cards twice to find exactly the things you need to pull you out of situations is just a very strong play that I don't want to have to deal with. Okay, and there's a Saga's a pretty good find here. Now we are up against back to basics. But we're starting to tax our opponent now. So they can't deploy back to basics this turn or the next turn. So we should be able to get our Saga value. I can't imagine they're going to be big on the old Wasteland front. Now they could be holding up for a plow or something this turn. It's perfectly reasonable. Another Urza Saga is kind of thing you want in a control matchup, so I'm not unhappy about that. We already have an artifact in play, so our guys are going to be a bit bigger. Don't know how many dress downs in our opponent's deck. Probably a non-zero amount, I would imagine, in their 75. Swords to Plowshares end turn on our Thalia. Sure. Cracking a Prismatic Vista. A white source. Staff. Back to basics. Okay, so we can have one guy out of this. Which I think is worth doing. And I think this is a Retrofitter Foundry matchup. And I think we are jamming an Urza Saga here. And then we will make a Thopter. This means our construct is beaten for 4, which is a pretty reasonable chunk of damage here. And we get one construct out of this Saga. Now we've just got all these planes to keep flowing and just keep using our Retrofitter's Foundry. So our opponent is under the gun a little bit. They're not casting Supreme Verdict this turn because they can only get up to 3 mana. But they can cast it next turn. So Prismatic Vista here, probably finding an island. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to have red sources in here. Okay. Staff the Storyteller. It's kind of a chump block for a turn. It's not unhelpful. I think this is a matchup where we're leveraging all our value here, rather than trying to. Do you want to trade this 1/1? I don't think I want to trade a 1/1 for their spirit. Well, it does make our Seasoned Dungeoneer better. Yeah, we get the chump instead. That's fine. So we can make an end of turn as a Saga token. And then we can see about deploying this Seasoned Dungeoneer. Or just committing more into the Retrofitters. We'll see what life holds for us. Alright, so they're brainstormed into a Staff of the Storyteller. It's going to fuel up both of their others. It's going to fuel up itself, obviously, as well as the other one. So this one is drawing them in another card. So there's a lot of card advantage going on from our opponent there. So we're going to need to get this game over and done with as soon as possible, really. It's not getting better for us. Okay, so what does this one find us? We can shut off their graveyard if we want to, or we can just get this Shadowspear and get that on the road. I like that. So we'll jam this Shadowspear onto the servo token here. This gives them the ability to chump block with the flying token this turn. But I think they're doing that anyway, because we can't put it on both of them anyway. So our life total is not the important thing. It's just making sure we continue to have bodies. So we can make an end of turn Retrofitters. And we've got... Then we'll then have 3... Yeah, so each construct will be lethal, and the servo plus the other servo will be lethal as well. So they're going to have to kill 3 creatures. Now, Supreme Verdict definitely does it in a big way here, but we can make an end of turn Retrofitters, which might be good enough. I think it has to be Supreme Verdict or bust here. I guess they could chain together 3 removal spells, but if they had that many removal spells, surely something dies before them. Okay, so we got a Stoneforge Mystic that's going to charge up both the staffs. Obviously not immediately, they need to put in the thing first. So we will make a little servo here. Timeless Dragon. That's not really what we're in for right now, is it? Right, we're just going to attack with everything. How many removal spells do they have here? A Dress Down. That's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one. Sure. Get a card from this. Just working out if it's worth turning this into a flyer. I think so. This puts our opponent to 1 and gives us a flyer. Our opponent does have a Batterskull though. I think we jam Seasoned Dungeoneer here. They can't force the Willers because they're on 1 life. Now, if they have a Cauldron, I don't think they can attack with it. So this may not get the come into play, but it's just another body, right? Is what we're trying to achieve here. Because it's an unblockable body next turn, as is the Thopter token. So we have 2 unblockable threats. So Cauldron doesn't do it, Batterskull doesn't do it. We could have played the flying threat instead. Against white removal, a little bit less into that. I think the Seasoned Dungeoneer is where I want to be here. Because the Seasoned Dungeoneer is always... Alright, so they didn't get the Batterskull to play this turn. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it better to make a Timeless Dragon, or is it better to make this Retrofitters? We know there's a Batterskull coming. This can be counterspelled. I think we're supposed to make a Retrofitter Foundry and turn it into a servo. Can we do that? So that's 3, 4, 5, 6 mana to do that. So we've got 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think we'll go for the uncounterable 1/1 flyer here. Does turn off our Ancient Tomb permanently, but yeah, there's the Batterskull. If they have removal, it beats both of these lines, but if they have a counter spell, we can actually play around it here. So I think the Retrofitters is the correct line. So you get 2 mana for this, 3 mana to untap it. Oh, not that one. It's the create a flyer. Can I Thopter, please? No. Okay, so the removal would have beaten either line. But now we can play a 5/5 that can block this. Or we can play a Seasoned Dungeoneer. Do like playing Seasoned Dungeoneer here. Because we can play this Ancient Tomb to activate our Retrofitter Foundry here. So that they can't get the initiative back without wasting removal on our Retrofitter Foundry token. And I guess, yeah, because this got Vigilance, they're going to be attacking anyway. They will gain 4 life in this exchange. This is a tight one. They gain 4 life from this, but we can crack back for lethal potentially, right? Yeah, we have lethal on board. if they don't have a removal spell. Let's see if there are many cards they're drawing can get them there. They can't do another Supreme Verdict here unless they find another mana source as well. Alright, we got the concession there. Tough game. That was game 2, wasn't it? Because we got kind of bodied in game 1. We bought out the Chancellors. Right, it's a bit of a long one. Let's go to... I don't think we want Katakis and stuff like that. I think we're just going to submit and just try and have a load of planes so that we don't lose to back to basics. Well, I need some more land, so I'm going to have to mulligan this one. Alright, I'll keep this one and we'll pitch back the Chrome Mox. This game isn't really about blistering speed. I guess we could have kept the Chrome Mox instead of the Karakas, so that way we've got a source of mana that doesn't lose it to back to basics, but then they do have things like prismatic endings and things in white that can just ruin that for us. And we're already mulligan, we don't really want 2 for one ourselves. I think we're okay. The Karakas could also be used to bounce the Thalia if we get into that situation. Dodge a bit of removal with it, have a good time. Ah, this Wasteland. That's a good one, isn't it? Great. There's the planes. Our opponent's turn. Staff of the Storyteller. Alright. We can kill this Staff of the Storyteller with our Touch of the Spirit Realm, which honestly I think we have to do. The amount of card advantage that Staff of the Storyteller is going to accrue over the course of this game is just great. So I think these Touch of the Spirit Realms aren't going to get much better than that, apart from maybe blinking some Dungeoneers and things, which can be okay, but you need to have mana up for it to make you dodge the removal and stuff, so it's not going to be particularly easy at this stage of the game. We have Thalia, we have Retrofitters, we can cast Seasoned Dungeoneer next turn. Now they have a 1/1 flyer which can just take the initiative back quite effectively, so I'm not really wanting to play the Dungeoneer just yet. I think the Retrofitters and Thalia is where I'd like to be. So we can play that, holding up Karakas to keep our Thalia safe from a plow. Which sounds good to me. Right, we take our 1 point damage. Play this. Play our Retrofitters first. This is one that might get some action. Nope. So we'll play Thalia holding out Karakas, so we can at least protect it from the source of Plowshares. We can grind through the removal our opponent has. Seeing the Karakas up, they might be inclined to not remove it. They might want to counterspell it instead. Disenchant. Sure. That's annoying, but I think it's probably fine. We got our Thalia in. We can get to keep our Retrofitters instead of losing that. So we kind of just delay them a turn. We could have played our own Thalia that turn. But let's see how this game transpires. They did not have a land. They did not have another land. These guys are coming in because they're completely useless against the first strike of Thalia. I don't really want to play some of these things, unfortunately. Seasoned Dungeoneer feels real bad here because they can attack back, kill all of our guys, and just be sat on the initiative. So I think we're supposed to just make some tokens and hold up Plow. This also makes us slightly better against back to basics because we're not just tapping out and giving them a really good window for it. There's a prismatic ending on the Retrofitter Foundry. I think we will make ourselves a 1/1. Coming for 2, yeah. I don't think we want to plow one of these. Yuck. Okay. It's not great, is it? We might have to deploy the Dungeoneer here. As awful as that is. Don't like it. If they only attack with one guy. Alright, so we're getting a Force of Will here, but that did cost us 2 life. We should have played out our Wasteland, so we could play a Plow this turn. Yeah. That's what I wanted to play a Plow for. Called a complete, sure. So we're just going to get beaten down by these little spirit tokens. Chrome Mox, you're not very helpful, are you? Let's say no to Stoneforge Mystic. We're also massively losing this damage race as well. Another force. Another force. Like, even if that plow goes through, like, it's a lot better for us than them having a Cauldra, but I just don't think we can beat what our opponent's doing. Like, just this blue-white control shell is just really strong. Like, unless we're doing the really broken turn 1 type stuff, yeah. We can chump block here and stay alive, but it's not living, is it? Alright, so we finally come to a losing game there. Felt like our opponent just had us all the time. Even the game we won, I felt very fortunate to win that one, so a bit grim, but these decks are supposed to beat creature decks, right? They're just full of answers and then a couple of efficient threats. Staff and Storyteller looks really good this game, so big fan of that card. So we are 3-1. Let's go into the final round, see if we can get the 4-1. We're on the play for round 1, which is somewhere I like to be. We've got an Urza Saga game. Let's hope that's good. Show them my Chancellor. Goes out. We could play out the Chrome Mox here, imprinting the Chancellor, but if our opponent's got something like a Prismatic Ending, that's going to be really bad for us. So I think we should leave it for a turn. And next turn, if we need white mana as well as Ancient Tomb to activate our Saga, then that's the thing we can do. Badlands. Okay, so this is a potential Reanimator matchup. Thoughtseize into the Chancellor, sure. Retrofitter Foundry. Are we supposed to... I think we are supposed to play the Karakas and the Chrome Mox here. Imprinting the Chancellor. We don't want this in our hand for our opponent to be able to remove. The Karakas can remove a threat in a timely fashion. And then next turn... So if we can survive this turn, we can then untap, get Soulguide Lantern, and feel a lot happier. Now, our opponent's got like a full grip over there, so the chances of them being able to win through a Soulguide Lantern is certainly possible. Nearly went a whole league without seeing Reanimator. I guess it might not be Reanimator. Could be like a Storm variant. But it does feel Reanimatory. Unmask, targeting themselves. That would be an Archon of Cruelty. Right, we get to see the rest of their hand. They binned off an Atraxa, sure. Reanimate. Yeah, that's pretty good. We've got an answer for it, so it's not the end of the world. What are we discarding here? I don't think this is the Retrofitter Foundry game, is it? So we get to make an Urza Saga now. Chrome Mox. So we can make a Saga token now at the cost of our Touch of the Spirit Realm, right? Do I want to do that? They have an Entomb, is the problem. So they do have another creature on the way. But we have the Soulguide Lantern. Yeah, so we're going to make a token this turn. Because we want to get this game over and done with. Whilst we can. Let's get this. This goes and finds a Soulguide Lantern. This is exile, whatever. There's Chrome Mox. Imprinting Touch the Spirit Realm. Play this Ancient Tomb. Cast this with our Ancient Tomb and our Chrome Mox. This exiles this, so they can't even bring it back if they had a way to bring it back. Goodbye, Archon of Cruelty. Alright, our opponents scoop into that one because they get one turn and then we get to kill them, basically. So, alright. Take game 1 against Reanimator. Don't mind if I do. We would like Surgical Extractions and Faerie Macabre. We would also like these Containment Priests. And this Grafdigger's Cage. And these Rest in Peace. And I guess Recruiter finds a Containment Priest as well. A lot of cards have got to come out. This is a matchup where the Chancellor feels pretty useful. Retrofitters is going to be slow. This game isn't going to be about Shadowspear unless we do get into one of those weird little Doughty Voidwalker post-board games. I think our plan against those is the removal. I don't think we want Solitude because our opponent can Thoughtseize and reanimate it from our hands. Same with Timeless Dragon. kind of similar deal with the Chancellor, right? Chancellor slows them down, but it gives them a really good thing to reanimate, which is kind of annoying, right? Yeah, I'm not sure about the Chancellor. That's a tricky one. The Retrofitter is going here. So, Solitude is something we can put in off of a thing. I'd rather they get a Solitude than a Chancellor, but Chancellor does slow them down. I think we are supposed to have the Chancellors here, aren't we? And try and break serve. Which means we need to cut something else. Are we cutting things like Seasoned Dungeoneers? Because we don't want our opponent to reanimate them. That feels not amazing, but probably fine. Loran of the Third Path can blow up some of their stuff. Is that enough to include it over another Seasoned Dungeoneer? A Touch of the Spirit Realm is interesting because it can remove guys and it's something we can put off of show and tell if our opponent's doing that. Maybe it's the Shadowspear for a Seasoned Dungeoneer. And rely on our removal to get through the Daffy Voidwalker Grief plan. What does our hand do? It makes a turn 1 Containment Priest. Our opponent is keeping 7 cards. I don't think whatever we keep here wins, right? That's just the nature of how this matchup works. So we'll keep it. If we get to turn 2 unmolested in terms of hand disruption, then fair enough. If our opponent gives us a turn, then we're okay. Unmasked tagging us, sure. We're going to lose the Containment Priest here. I think turn 1 Graveyard and Show and Tell Hate is good enough to keep even on the draw because we don't have ley lines and stuff anyway. And mulliganing to Faerie Macabre just means that when they do unmask you, then you lose the game because you've got nothing. At least we've got other tools that we can leverage here. So we can Wasteland our opponent's mana. We can tax them with the Esper Sentinel to draw us into more goodness. So we've got things we can do. We've got Karakas to bounce the Grizzlebrand. That's pretty fine. Oh, wowzers. They got a discard spell as well. Dark Ritual is just going now. Entomb, into Reanimate. So this is going to be Archon of Cruelty, I have to imagine. Because we're showing them face up that we've got... Oh, they're going for the Grizzlebrand even though we got the Karakas. Okay, I guess they do get to draw 14 cards here pretty easily. 7 cards. Can they put another guy into the bin and reanimate it? 7 cards. If they can't do stuff, we might be able to get cheeky Karakas off and rebuild a little bit. But our opponent's got so many resources now, they should just be able to make creature after creature here. So we're in a spot where we kind of need the Containment Priest and... Right, so we've got Grief coming in, so we're not going to be able to do anything. We do still have the Karakas for the Grizzlebrand, which is not nothing. But pretty close to it, given they've drawn many cards. This is why Graveyard Hate that isn't Leyline doesn't feel very good versus Reanimator. Because we could have had all the Graveyard Hate in the world here, and they could have taken us apart still. Okay, our opponent's going to clean up. How many big juicy monsters are going into their graveyard? None. Interesting. We have one play here. That play is bounce the Grizzlebrand. It's not great, but it's what we got. They don't have a lot of life to work with, so like reanimate lines are looking very bad. But they could show and tell here, and we don't really get to anything. We've got Entomb into Archon of Cruelty this time, I would imagine. There's the Archon of Cruelty. We get to Exhume and put in one of our guys that then immediately dies. Sad times. Okay, so we need a removal spell for this. Please. That's not a removal spell. If we play out any creature now, we die. It dies, sorry. So let me just take out the bad lands and hope that our opponent doesn't really get much else going on. And we can draw a plow and then maybe creep our way back in. But we get one draw step to do that because this thing hits for 9 a turn. Yep, so we'll get rid of an Esper Sentinel. We're not going to really have the time to leverage those. Whereas the Thalia might put a lock on the game a little bit. if our opponent doesn't have any mana sources. So they put a lot of mana sources in their bin. Alright. Faith is looting. Gonna make another guy. So they've now got enough life that they can reanimate some giant creature. We haven't seen any of their sideboard stuff here, which is interesting. Another Archon of Cruelty. So we can maybe get there with a plow. Faerie Macabre. That's not enough. We don't want our opponent to see that. So we get to be on the play. Do we want to do anything differently? Deafening Silence. Do we want you to stop our opponent from doing lots of scary things? Maybe. Like a turn 1 Seasoned Dungeoneer can race what our opponent's doing, which is pretty great, to be honest. Let me see for Dungeoneers. Like on the play, I think they're a lot better than they are on the draw. Let's try this. So we have a hand that makes a turn 2 Containment Priest. But we have 5 pieces of turn 1 Graveyard Hate, so I think we have to mulligan this. Okay. I think we can keep this. So we can go Deafening Silence into Surgical Extraction. So if our opponent wants to... our opponent basically can't reanimate a monster on turn 1. If they go lower, the Surgical Extraction gets higher value. Now we have the awkward thing of trying to cast a Thalia with a Surgical Extraction, because this is not a good combo. But we'll see what we can do. We'll keep this hand, we'll get rid of one of our touches. So done. We have 2 sideboard cards, we can't really ask for much more than that. This buys us time. That's what Deafening Silence does. And hopefully, time is good enough. Now our opponent can just Thoughtseize us here and take away our extraction. And then we're kind of got nothing going on. Trying to do stuff with Thalia here is going to be awkward. Again, unmasked, so that choice is probably going to be taken away from us. So we're probably going to lose extraction. And then we can jam the Thalia. We also now know about the Wasteland. They can't play any spells this turn. If they've got an Entomb, they can cast it in our turn before we play the Thalia. Urza Saga is a good one. Gives us the ability to produce some real threats to close the game with. If the Thalia can do enough, it also threatens Graveyard Hate in a few turns. I think we're getting an Entomb. They're going to untap, cast Exhume or something, and we're going to lose the game. That's kind of how I feel this game is going. Oh, they're casting Tear on that. That's interesting. Like, Thalia does a similar effect in making them not able to cast multiple spells, really. So I don't really mind that too much. I think that it would have been scarier on the Urza Saga, to be honest. We have a choice whether or not we Wasteland our opponent or we activate Urza Saga. I guess it depends on what our opponent does right now. Our opponent doesn't do anything. That's interesting. Do we want the Urza Saga value? Do we want to Wasteland our opponent? I think we need the Urza Saga value to try and win this game. We'll play out this Karakas so we can at least threaten Grizzlebrands and stuff. Opponent didn't cast anything on their turn. That's very interesting to me. Okay. This is very good for us, I think. Get Construct. We get another Construct. We get a piece of Graveyard Hate. We get a Wasteland. We get to say goodbye to their Scrubland. And if they didn't do anything on 2 mana for 2 turns... Oh wow, they're just scooping up there. Alright, we got there with a plan. I don't know what our opponent's hand was in that case. I just don't understand what they would have had. Alright, well we got a 4-1, which I think is what we got last time we played this deck, maybe? Or might have been a 3-2. Let's chat about the deck. So this is a weird one, right? I think this deck doesn't feel very good, but it gets there quite often, if that makes sense. I feel like, oh, I'm in the middle of just a nothing hand. I've got nowhere to go with it. I'm not getting it. And then all of a sudden you draw stuff at the top and everything changes. And I do think there is a lot of situations where if a draw goes the other way, then you got nothing, right? You don't have a huge density of threats. And when the decks are good at answering them, then you got nothing. But our threats are pretty good. Like Urza Saga and Seasoned Dungeoneer are both pretty effective. they kind of dodge different things as well. So as a Saga, comes in under counter spells, makes you some guys, forces action, great. Seasoned Dungeoneer, if it sticks through the counter spells, then they can't really use removal to get rid of it. It's just going to keep accruing Vantage. So I think that makes sense. But without those, our threat base is very low, which is kind of interesting. Like, we'd managed to draw Retrofitter Foundry in some spots without having our Saga, which was kind of handy. I think without that, it does feel like you can end up a bit low on the threat side, and we should be losing to quite control-y strategies. So like Bug Control that we played against, I think should have had us. Death Shadow, I think most of the time is going to beat us. And I also think like that blue-white deck should be beating us quite handily as well. So it's definitely an area of the meta that's going to prey on us quite hard here. And I do worry about our combo matchup. We don't have any of like the big hammer pieces like Chalice to rely on anywhere, which feels like possibly a bit of trouble for us, because decks can sort of clock us before we're doing Thalia stuff anyway, and they usually like if they see white stuff, they're going to be very prepared for Thalia if they haven't seen it in game 1 already. So I think our game gets worse against a lot of combo, well, depending on the combo decks, right? But like things like Storm, our matchup definitely gets worse, I think, post board. Now, it's not to say we don't have tools for it and we can't beat it. Like Deafening Silence is very strong, but like that and Doomsday is another one I think is probably going to be good against. But again, anyone who plays a deck and tells you that it doesn't have bad matchups, it isn't worth listening to. Like every deck's going to have some things that it struggles against, and you know we struggle against having our particular tools taken away. You know, surgical removal on the key things that matter. You know, well-timed wastelands, stuff like that is going to be really good against us. But our ability to just deploy a threat and kind of remove a bunch of other stuff is pretty reasonable. I don't know, this deck's so weird. Like, I don't really like this deck, but we do seem to keep getting there with it. It's one of those weird ones. It's a bit like that, the Fiend Artisan Elf deck, which I don't like. You know, it's just kind of playing mostly bad cards, but it gets there so often. It's fascinating. So it kind of reminds me a bit of that, which isn't a bad place to be, because you know that deck has done some good stuff too. And we are playing good cards. I just think the ratios are a bit weird. We don't feel like an aggro deck. We're just like a mid-rangey deck, and that sort of stuff tends to be a bit weird in Legacy, right? You want to be a tempo deck or a control deck or a combo deck or whatever. Being sort of like a mid-rangey, trying to do a little bit of everything, because you know we got a little bit of taxing, we got some mana denial stuff going on. We've got some good threats. We've got loads of removal. You know, we are like a mid-range deck, which is not something you expect to see a lot of in Legacy, especially when the white mid-range slot is kind of taken up by Death and Taxes in a big way. And that deck, whilst it is kind of mid-rangey, it accrues so much advantage over time that the longer the game goes, the more likely the D&T player is to win, because they're just accruing so much, because all of their cards do something, whereas a lot of our cards are, we spend 2 cards, whether that's Chrome Mox or Solitude, you know, and we've got Chancellor Annex, which is a blank a lot of the time as a card. So we've got a lot of disadvantage. So we're kind of very different to D&T, but somehow we just seem to keep getting there. I think if this is your sort of deck, you know, I've played it twice now. Perez has won 2 challenges back-to-back with it now, I think. Or not quite back-to-back. But I think they might have top 16'd or ish. They were in and around that amount and the previous one. So that's not bad. Sort of 2 out of 3 challenges won. So this deck's clearly got some legs to it. And I think this version is definitely better than the previous version. Having the extra Eiganjo just as another mana source is nice. I do think 3 Karakas might be too greedy for a 23 land deck that's trying to do what we're doing here. So I think I would consider cutting a Karakas for a Plains, because you don't want to end up getting sort of hammered that way. But that's pretty much, like, you could cut it for another utility land if you want. I just dislike having multiple Karakas when we're trying to cast 4 and 5 drops. Like 2 is about right in my experience in 60 card decks. But yeah, this deck is pretty solid. Just keep seeming to get there. And if you want to play some sort of white mid-range deck that's not Death and Taxes, this is probably the one for you. Alright, I think we're done here. So, like, comment, subscribe, help me out, please. And if you know anyone who likes my content, or you go on, like, Magic subreddits, always post my stuff. Now, I don't really go on Reddit, because I know I'd waste all my time if I did go there, because I just get sucked into stuff like that. So, if you want to help me out and post my content there, that really helps me out. But the most important thing is to just keep watching and enjoying, really. So, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.